Hey everyone, I just wanted to create a video about the Cross of the Sleeping Phoenix because I am the Cross of the Sleeping Phoenix, and it's also the global programming energy spectrum that's going to be coming into full play once we reach 2027. So, for those of you who don't know, we have been in the cross of planning since 1640, I think. And this is a very powerful cross that we've all lived through, and the last 3 or 4 generations, if not more, have lived through. And its role as our background consciousness programming pattern has driven humanity to come together over certain racial and socioeconomic identities in order to create more humans. It has been the force that's driven the Industrial Revolution and our capacity to make cleaner, safer living conditions available to more human beings than ever before in history. And so, under the cross of planning, we were able to really take control of our environment like never before, and to really drive home the Piscean paradigm of to be or not to be, which the subtext of which is really about how, under the influence of the cross of planning, we were driven to give away our individuality to a greater group, ideal, or institution in exchange for protection, in exchange for services, amenities, and other factors that created a safer world for us, so to speak. And while this cross has been at play for the past 400 years and is responsible for the world that we know today, with all of its advancements and all of its tragic imbalances, this show comes to an end in 2027. So, looking at the future, we really have to understand that everything that has subconsciously driven us as a species for the past 400 years or more is going to suddenly switch off. And it's already beginning to do so. And we can see that the human motivation to maintain the infrastructures that keep this world livable at the scale that we've created it, and at the concentration and at the level of disconnection from natural cycles that it has become, all of this is going to crumble. And it's kind of like a slow speed deactivation process. When we think of these big shifts in consciousness, we tend to equate it with big sudden tower moment kind of revolutionary shifts. But this is something that is like the cycles of a body or the cycles of seasons. It's a gradual exchange from one state to the next. So, anyway, now as we move forward into 2027, we're leaving the cross of planning, which is all about finding your tribe, finding your skills, and finding the right logical pattern that's going to eventuate into survival for you in a institutional world. It's going to change to the cross of the sleeping phoenix. And this is about individual survival and individual spirit. And these two forces meet at individual empowerment. So many people hear this, very mystical sounding title for the cross of the sleeping phoenix as a, spiritual energy of regeneration or rebirth. And that is true in a sense, but I think that takes away from the pragmatic and truly lived reality of this energy, this energy that we are all going to be foisted into starting February 18th, 2027. So this is all about individual energy meeting individual spirit, meeting individual empowerment. And you'll notice there that we have three big individuals. And what does it mean to be an individual? It means to bring something mutative to the table. You're not concerned with being a part of the tribe, which is all about bargaining skills and resources in order to share the burden of survival. So you're neither interested in becoming part of the collective, which is all about perfecting a pattern that you can then share as a solution with the whole greater whole. So this is individual energy and it's mutative. It's only interested in bringing something unique into the world, something completely new. And in order to do that, what we have to realize is you need to be able to contain your experience. You need to be able to have resources available to you as an individual with no material bargain as the mediator for how those resources are developed. And that really means to truly be an individual, you have to be free from the constraints and obligations of others while still being able to maintain your survival on a high level so that you can create the conditions and ensure the circumstances that will actually lead to a proper mutation. Because as we know in nature, not every mutation is positive in terms of survival. Not every mutation gets to complete its journey because the pressures of being an organism that is completely new and unique to an established system or order is not easy. And so at the same time, when we look at human life, we have to ask ourselves, what are the things that we truly need in this life to thrive? To literally not just be caught up in full throttle, exhausting survival, but to actually fully show up here as our spiritual selves in the physical form. What are those essential baseline human truths, non-negotiables, and golden means of life that are the standard for giving ourselves a good life here on earth, and a life that's not caught in fighting for our lives? Because the answer to that question is going to be the solution to our future. Our future is going to be unstable. And we can already see that because as a species in the civilized or the developed world, we've completely disconnected ourselves from natural cycles. We've completely disconnected ourselves from natural life support systems. And we've in turn hooked ourselves up to institutional life support systems like hospitals, police, government, churches, houses of worship, these greater overarching entities that manage the risk involved with being here on planet Earth and that consume tremendous amounts of resources to be here. And the thing about that is it had a time and a place because it eventuated into us being able to really understand the truth of what we are, who we are, what we're capable of, And yet that final fleshing out of our consciousness and the capacity of our conscious mind is coming to a close. Because even though a lot of what I've been talking about is related to survival, this coming epoch of the sleeping phoenix age, it's about spiritual survival. Because only through spirit, only through having a life, a vessel that is intact enough to be a clear vehicle for spirit, will we be able to access the energies necessary to survive in a world where the guarantees of the industrial era are no longer guarantees. When trains and planes stop showing up on time, when the power goes out and there's no one to fix it, when the plumbing is broken and there's no one to call. You know, this is what's coming. And because we are receptive beings with vehicles of immense intelligence and capacity to navigate the 3D material plane, we are going to learn that the only way through these new sets of challenges that we'll face is not through the mind. It's through listening to our bodies and through our connection to our environment. The necessary solutions will be found and will arise. And keep in mind, we are a part of our environment. So our environment includes the people in our life, not just people that you think are loved ones, but people who have the knowledge, the skills, the resources that you'll need to survive. Those people will become a lot more important, because we will move into this decentralized era where there'll be many hubs of smaller specialized groups that work and live under shared frequencies, intentions, if you will. And there will be much less in the heart of civilization. There'll be much less to be found there. It might actually even be very hard to go to places of dense population, or what were once places of dense population. And who knows how that's going to manifest. But really, the truth about the cross of the sleeping phoenix, as I've alluded to, is about being able to ensure your unique spiritual survival. Because you, as we all know, you can be alive, you can be surviving, but your spirit's not there. You know, that true hum, that true harmony, that true frequency of who you are is not present. And that's why we have so many people migrating to the world of spiritual knowledge and self-help, because they're looking for a way to rectify this bridge between the life that they're living and who they feel inside and who they know they really are and that they can be and how good they can feel. And that's what the sleeping phoenix is about. It's about taking action on what you need to take action on in order to liberate your spirit in this world. Do you need to? Well, I won't ask. I will actually offer an example. It's like human design gives us a blueprint of our optimal functioning for who we are. And when we follow that blueprint, we tend to release resistance. You know, we tend to release aspects of ourselves, our thinking or our doing, that blocks us from being in harmony with our natural life force. And that's the whole deconditioning process, is letting go of everything that would hinder you from being the most unique you that you could be. And just like unique plants all have different care instructions, you have to water each design in its own way in order to get the most beautiful blossom out of it. And the same goes for us. So this is about meeting our spiritual needs on a very precise and a very uncompromising level. That's what the Sleeping Phoenix is about. It's about realizing what abundance is for you in this life, what gives life that feeling of wonder and joy and just awe. You know, because when we really, 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 really zoom out, you know, let's say from the perspective of like a super advanced alien civilization, or just a god or whatever, just source, unity consciousness. No one's doing anything that different here, you know? We're all eating, we're all getting into relationships, we're all sleeping, we're all, you know, going for some use of our energy that gives us back something that matters to us. You know, we're all looking for joy. We're looking for the reflection that we see in our lives to resonate deep, deep within our hearts as what we came here to experience as love. And and so the Sleeping Phoenix is about clearing away anything that stands in the way of our vision of love and our lived reality, and what is. So, in a sense, the Sleeping Phoenix process is the deconditioning process. It's about coming to know the recipe for your own blossoming, for your own flowering, for your own thriving. And it's then about implementing that to a T. You know, that's why recipes exist, so that you get the fullness of the flavor and the texture and the temperature and the aroma all together in a perfect balance. If it didn't matter, then we wouldn't have recipes and everyone would just improvise. And I'm sure that would be fine too. But the whole idea here is, if you really want to get that full experience of your spirit here living in a 3D human experience, which is what you signed up for, you've got to do it the right ways. You've got to follow the recipe. You can't follow society's recipe and expect your spirit to show up in full joy and embodiment. It can look very similar, perhaps, maybe, but ultimately, it's going to be a unique experience. So the energy of the Sleeping Phoenix is burning down everything that stands in the way of each human being having a divine, dignified, fair chance at accessing their truest consciousness, you know, at living as a soul in a body, not just a body fighting for survival with the hopes that one day the full breadth of the being and the personality can come through. It's about living in your full vibration, unapologetically in the now. And doing so, even if it means kind of saying fuck you to the way that things are done now. And as a Sleeping Phoenix, that's something that I've struggled with my whole life, because I've known, or have been able to keep in sight, what is my recipe for fulfillment. You know, it has boundaries to it. And sometimes the world in its momentum, in its, oh look, we're doing things this way and it works, so this must be the only way, the world can sometimes encroach upon those boundaries and try and take from me in certain ways that it sees as fair or it sees as justified. But in actuality, in my sovereign truth, most of the time, those things have nothing to do with my process, have nothing to do with my essence. And so people will say, well, I mean, that's just part of life. You have to make some compromises in order to coexist here, don't you? And I say, no. If I were to say yes to that, I would not be the person that I've chosen to be. I would not be the person that would be qualified to be speaking on this to you, because I would be a hypocrite. To live your uniqueness is to, in an enlightened way, put yourself first. Because if you're not taken care of, if your body isn't protected in the way that it needs to be protected, nourished in the way that it needs to be nourished, given time and space to run its own unique cycles, not the cycles of the economy or the religion or the society that you happen to be born into. If we don't honor that, then we break that boundary. We break that spiritual protection that comes with honoring our uniqueness. And we invite the corruption of these greater systems into our life force. I know it's extreme. It's an extreme viewpoint. It's an extreme threshold to live on. But the reason that I'm so committed to it is because I know that this is the way of the future. I know that in time, everything that people now cling to as an identity, or a great majority of what people cling to as an identity, or a banner under which they can organize, or a patriotism, or a, anything that's outside of your DNA that people think defines them, that's all going to get burnt away on an energetic level, perhaps in some instances on a physical level. But when I'm speaking of it, it's energetic, because everything is a frequency, everything is a signature. And even the thought forms that fill people's minds have a expiration date. And they will pass away from this plane, just like many of the traditions of previous epochs have passed away, and now we live in different ways. This is the next big shift. Individual empowerment, individual spirit. Because we're going to be shown that the external authorities of this world cannot be relied upon. And that's what I feel the countdown to 2027 is, they say apocalypse means the great unveiling. That's it. It's going to be shown to us that the sacrifices we've had to make without even realizing it to have the world that we have today, on some level, in some dimension of life, are just too costly, wrong, and against life to continue. And we'll see that, and we will feel that these systems are actually unsafe, unhealthy. And so we won't be able to conscionably continue. Our bodies won't. If this were just about the mind, it wouldn't happen. We would keep going with things that didn't work. But luckily for us, our minds are not in control. Our bodies are. And so the internal mechanisms of the physical body that perpetuate this existence, not because we want them to, but because that's what bodies do, those we will change on that level. And when that happens, we will see the world as we know it dwindle, essentially. And in its place, a new system emerge. So this is interesting because you can kind of think of it in terms of the law of progression. I don't think that's the real term, but in natural studies, there is an order of events that have to take place for life to be viable. Because in the beginning, there's just solid rock. So some of the first species to show up on the solid rock are mosses and lichens. These very sturdy, very primordial plant-like species that over time begin to essentially digest this hard stone and slowly but surely turn it into finer and finer tiny bits of stone until it becomes the earth, the tillable earth, or a soil in which plants and trees can grow. So first we have lichens and mosses, and then we have some other intermediaries that come, and then the fungi. And it actually is the fungus, the mushrooms, that create the first root systems beneath the surface. So in the very beginning, it's just hard surface, so nothing can grow there. The lichens come, they break it down slowly. Then the fungus come and they break it down even more. And as this order of different species of plant and fungi symbiotically do their thing, they prepare what was once barren land into something that is fertile and that can give rise to a profusion of new species, insects, animal life, etc. So the sleeping phoenix people on this planet that are living in this generation, we are the lichens, we're the moss, we are the fungi, because we're living with the program of the future already installed. We're running the new operating system. And one of the keys of this operating system is we're resistant to conditioning. The age of the cross of planning was all about conditioning. It was the only way to survive, was to take on conditioning of your tribe, of your society, of your government, culture, religion. To be or not to be. To be, you had to give up your spirit. You had to let the conditioning in order to survive. Now, as we move into the Aquarian age, it is be to be. So only through connection to yourself will you be able to survive what's coming next. And that's why human design is important. That's why I haven't let it go for 10 years since the very first day I laid eyes on my chart. Because I knew that the blueprints of the future aren't in the mind. They aren't in the minds of the experts, the authorities at the top of the ladder. or the pyramid. The blueprints for the new earth are already inside us. But if our bodies are tarnished and degraded because we're connected to systems that are anti-life, that are fundamentally anti-life, then we won't be able to read those blueprints. We won't be able to bring forth those codes and plans. So this is why I do what I do. This is who I am. And this is the message I wanted to bring to you today. So that's some food for thought, understanding your place in the progression of, in the evolution of consciousness and in history, I think is very important now. It's not a casual time to just be considering what you're going to buy next or how you want to look or who you think you need to impress by mimicking things that are shown by consumer culture to be valuable or attractive. This is a time of understanding where you want to take root in the new world. And it's a time to be self-empowered, which means no one else has power over you. It's not easy, but it's possible. And the more that you start to walk in this direction now, the easier it'll be in the future, in a time where it will not be easy for many. So I hope that this is inspiring you to take yourself seriously, get real, do it with love, and connect to a greater vision for who you came here to be outside of capitalist society. Thanks for listening. Bye.